Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
Hey guys, this is your host Darren, and welcome back to the Touch MBA podcast. This week I brought on Chris Tran, who just graduated from London Business School. Chris is from Vietnam, and after working in Vietnam for over 7 years, decided to finally get his MBA, and he decided to go abroad to London Business School. So we talk about three things in this conversation. One is his application journey, and he shares his best application tips. Then we talk about his LBS experience. What was it like for him to go through the program? What surprised him? And then finally, we end our talk discussing how he landed his internship and now his full-time job working for Accenture in London. I love these shows where we bring on alumni who have just graduated. I feel like oftentimes they have the freshest and best insights, and I hope those of you considering LBS or perhaps attending a top MBA program in the UK get a lot from this episode. For me, I really learned that a lot of Chris's lessons boil down to how to tell your best story, both to get into business school, but also to land that first job, and the different practices he's used to hone that story. So listen on for Chris's best tips to do that, to give yourself the best chance of getting into your dream MBA. Remember that you can get free school selection help from us at touchmba.com. Go over there, upload your profile, and within a week, we give you all sorts of free goodies, ranging from how you can improve your profile to the opportunity to consult with 6 or 7 top-ranked business schools around the world before you even apply. So go check that out at touchmba.com. Also, one more thing. Now that more business schools are starting to travel and recruit in cities around the world, I just want to let you know that we have just a very simple, but I believe useful free service that tracks the top 50 business schools and where they are around the world. So in other words, if you live in Los Angeles or you live in Singapore or you live in Ho Chi Minh City, as I do, we send out monthly emails that show which top business schools are in town. So this is just one easy way for you to know who's in town and for you to connect with admissions directors and alumni during these recruiting events. So that is at touchmba.com/events. All right, let's get to my talk with Chris. Here we go. My next guest graduated from London Business School in July this year, and he started working as a business strategy consultant for Accenture in London last month. I'm really excited to get him on because you all know that I love getting insights of recent graduates. So he is a perfect case, and he's generously agreed to share his experience. Welcome, Chris Tran, to the Touch MBA podcast.
Thank you, Darren, for having me.
Yes. So Chris, my first question for you is, what were you doing before LBS and why did you eventually apply for an MBA? Because I remember you telling me that, many times you thought about it, but, you didn't pull the trigger.
Right. Okay. So before LBS, I worked as an investment manager at a South Korean asset manager. And my entire career was with the company. So it was buy side, doing research and investments. I met you, right? Remember like 6-7 years ago? It was quite a long time now. When I was first thought about applying for the MBA, and a few years after that, my idea shaped up. I was prepared, but I think by that time, the business interest and the personal interest, they did not match. So I didn't finalize the application, although I thought about it. So back in 2019, where there's a little bit of push to me from the personal side that, my girlfriend, now wife, we think both of us would apply to go do an MBA in the UK. And then we started looking at different business schools in the UK then, and we both applied together. So yes, not that it was a bit of delay, but it was just that, the timing of it worked out. And the reason why I applied to and I looked at LBS is, and I wrote this in my application, three reasons. One is actually in London, where I already have the experience there. So I think coming back to London is not really something that is out of the blue. Will take me less time to settle, hence more time to do other stuff, social, getting to know the scene a little better. So help with the navigation. The second reason is LBS, from what my research and also talking to the alumni, I think the candidates are a little bit more mature. They're a little bit older than in the US schools. And I can testify that during my experience. So I think that, when I apply before the MBA, I think I have 8 years of experience. So I think I classify as the older bunch. I think the third experience is also, it's actually very well connected and international. The diversity at LBS, I find, is quite bizarre. You meet somebody at very different places around the world. Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about this later on.
Yeah. I mean, did it worry you at all that, as you're getting more and more experience, you might get too old to apply for the MBA or have too much experience to apply for the full-time MBA? Because I'm sure lots of listeners are kind of, in a similar position as you were.
Yeah. So I researched that question carefully as well, Darren. Well, there's different ways to think about it, right? So I think the amount of experience doesn't matter as much as what do you want to get out of it. So 3 years, 5 years would be quite a difficult kind of time to apply, because the average MBA experience for LBS would be about 5.5 years. So I think that's around it. So as long as you got close to that, I think you're good. The way more than that, I think you probably get a little bit challenged. But I think if the plan works out, either that you want to change the career, you want to change the geography, you want to change the function, or just something that you want to pivot to, and you can have a plan how to use the program to help you to do that. I think that's way more important than the years of experience itself. And in a way, right, admission officers, they probably love the experienced ones because they are the one who would have an influence on the rest of the younger candidates. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
And I mean, well, let's go there. I mean, were you planning to pivot your career to London? I mean, clearly you're working there now, but was that part of your goal?
Yeah, so one of my plans. So when I apply, of course, there was a interest to stay in London, because I think after you've studied there, you have created your network there. It's a very natural progression that you would work in where you have studied and have your network. I think that's like my plan A. Plan B, yes, I think coming back to Vietnam, for me, I think is always an option. So I would put that as a plan B. And I did say that in my application as well, because they would probably like to see, how this candidate thought out plans A, B, C. But yeah, not too many, but I think at least have a few that I can show them that A and B, I think it is not this, then something else. I think that's what I describe my plan. For me, back to your question, Darren, for me, yes, during my career in investment, I have the chance to work a lot with different stakeholders and, partners within the business. One of that is a very important set of stakeholders as investors. Right? So they always get challenged from them, like, why should I invest in Vietnam? What stock, what strategy? So I think that kind of energized me quite a bit, working with them, talking to them, learning from them. And, when I talk to this, when this kind of interest or sort of tendency, right, with a lot of alumni, and they suggest, no, consulting might be a good career for you. And I researched into it, and coming to LBS, right, it helped me to change the business function. It helps me to change location from Vietnam to London. So yeah, couldn't be happier that I get what I wanted out of it.
Yeah, I want to dive into that in a little bit, how you did that. But did you actually mention consulting as a career option in your essays.
Yeah,
You did. Yeah. And I'm just curious, like, as someone from Vietnam, did you feel, well, I guess a lot of the graduates of LBS enter consulting. I think it was something like 40+% in the last cycle. But yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering if that could potentially, make it more difficult when you're applying, because there's so many people applying for consulting jobs, and you're not from the UK, you're from Vietnam. I'm asking because I think I hear this question a lot.
yeah. So I think is a way to kind of differentiate yourself, and I use my work experience as something that to do that. So that's to answer your question quickly. So in details, so I know financial services is a big part of London, and even within consulting, right? There's a sub-segment to it is financial services strategy, and I think I knew it pretty clearly coming in. That is actually the focus I want to get. So I wouldn't think that applying to is yes, you're right that you want to be a consultant. I think that's most people would try to be. But what kind of consultant, what sector you want to focus on, and why, or what make you like a better candidate than the rest? I think that would be something that they would expect to see more, rather than just saying, oh, I just want to be a consultant. And I think the geography matters a little bit. When I applied, I did get asked questions that do I actually want to be a consultant in Southeast Asia? And I said no, quite deliberately. I said no. So I have to turn down interview offers, even that, it's actually not my focus. So I think they want to see something clear. They want to see something that very distinctive. And it's just not a general plan that, if you just replace the name of your name with somebody else's name and it still work, then that's not specific enough, right? Exactly. So that would be my thought.
Yes. Well, and did your girlfriend and now wife, did she end up getting an MBA as well in London?
Yes, she did, yes.
Where did she end up going?
Also a consultant, yes. So we are a fun household.
All right, great. So yeah, I mean, just looking back, right? I'm wondering if you can share your just top 3 tips for applicants.
Yeah, okay, so top 3, I can give you more if you want to, but yes, okay, I try to keep the 3. So I think 1 is do your research well. And by what do we mean by that, right? So doing your research well, that means you have to talk to quite different people to get into the details, and you might not get it in one conversation for the same person. You might get quite a few. And, what is it like? What does it take to get in? What's the program? Was it, before, during, after, right? All of that journey, all the questions. Yeah, I think listening to podcasts like Touch MBA, for example, I think that was quite useful. And talk to the alumni. I think those are like the go-to channel that if you want to learn about the school and talk to the alumni, hands down the best source. And all the research about, what's the school admission rate, what is the outcoming classes going to do, that have a very good indication of, whether your success will be like. Yeah, and I think do your research well. So that's number 1. Number 2 is actually double down on the time to prepare the application. So a lot of people can do this very fast, but a lot of people can do this and, God forbid, but it takes a lot of revision to get there. And I think that the earlier you started the process, the better you'll be. But there will be a time where you have to make that cutoff point, depending on how many schools you apply to, depending on what story you want to have to show, and then also prepare the interview. So I think manage the whole process. Actually, you have to manage it well. It's actually very similar to the MBA experience when you have to manage a lot of things going on at the same time. So treat it as a practice exercise, whether you actually, if you can manage that, you'll be fine in the MBA. But if you seem that, it's too much to manage, I think that's an indication to, during the MBA time, you might, a little bit of struggle with the time and self-management bit. So that's the second.
Let me stop you there. So when you say double the time, how much time are we talking about for you, for your experience? How much time did you put in there?
I actually apply. Well, I thought about it for a long time, right?
Yes.
So more than the years than I like to admit. But I think the start doing bit for me, I think was more than 6 months.
Got it. Exactly. And
Yeah.
did you apply to multiple schools?
I only applied to 2 schools, and
Oh my
that's
gosh.
in the UK, and that's SIDE and LBS, and I got in both.
So you do exactly what I tell my listeners not to do, to apply to only 2 schools, and you succeeded.
I actually, because I knew that I would not have so much time. If you recall, 2019 and 20, that was like the breakout of COVID, right? I knew it was very difficult to manage everything, and that was a very turbulent time. That was like the only much time I have, and I did plan to do an exchange in the US because I know from alumni experience that would be an option. So I did consider, the MBA in the US or the MBA in the UK because I want to work in the UK. So I think that kind of narrowed down a lot of my choices. Yeah, so sorry, it's not a typical admission story that you'd like to hear.
Nothing to apologize about, Chris. Just trying to learn from you.
That is the very narrow focus that I set for myself. And because given the time and the resource that I have, I think I think the outcome is okay.
Absolutely.
So the first one is research. Second is time. And the third one is actually you have to be really always think about how you could position yourself, not just to the MBA, but out of the MBA as well. And it's never too early to think about it. I think the self-positioning, it starts with career and also career interests and also how you differentiate yourself from the rest of the group. I think that question, and I told you about this one and also the folks on the other day, right? And that will probably take a few time to revise, and that your answers will change depending on who asked, depending on, what you found out. And I think that is actually very important. But every time you change, the reason why you change, actually you learn quite a bit. So I think that is something that definitely is an exercise that worth doing, even you're going to take an MBA application seriously or not. It helps to clear out a lot of other things later on if you have that kind of right positioning from the beginning, and everything else will fall into their places. I feel like.
I mean, could you, share your experience, for example, when you're applying for the MBA, how you hone that story? Like, did you test your positioning with your girlfriend, with your colleagues, and how did it change from beginning to end?
So I think that's where I think the research, and so the third point also ties in with the research and also other things. But I think that's the key because for myself, when I started out, so I started to have a career in asset management. Yeah, I want to continue to that. And I think there's always a tendency to sort of like, I'll do more of the same, right? So the MBA probably will only help you to change the location. And I think that's fine and that's fair. So I initially thought I was that. And then when I talked to a bit more of the people, I do think that having somebody from the industry, the way you want to be, I think that helps.
Yes.
And they're going to assess the ability, what you need to do, how you position yourself. And I think that is where I see myself, start changing, and also talking to people from the industry, various industries, and you start to see where yourself would get. For me, I knew the candidacy would be around 1, having the international experience, 2, having quite a long career in asset management and financial services, 3, a combinations, various skills. Most of them I can gear towards consulting. And there's a bit at the end, I did tease about the integration between the 2 countries, UK and Vietnam. It seems there's been a lot going on. We signed a FTA for the 2 countries, and you see in the last 3 years, I think the 2 countries actually did a lot of collaboration on different things. So I did tease about being the bridge between the 2 and play out a theme of would be a good, and I still aspire to that. And I think that would be a good kind of transition as well. So kind of position yourself how to be of value, but value to who, right? Value not just to your school, to your classmates, to the future employers, but also, there's a broader themes. There might be something else going on that you want to be as valuable to as many of the stakeholders as possible. That would be the way I looked at it.
No, I love that. Well, any other tip you want to mention? You said you had a lot, so I don't want to, cut you off prematurely.
I just think that applying early, self-positioning, and also doing research is like the main ones. Other than that, I think look at if you can, attend some classes from the school as a friend, right? So during my interview rounds, I flew from Vietnam to London during the COVID time. Later got quarantined in the facility. It wasn't fun, but during the experience, I kind of asked a friend, like, can I just attend some classes? And yeah, I think you get a feel of the school, how it's going to be. And then during that, I talked to some people about their experience in the class, and you get a good feel how the course is going, the class, both the professor, how the students think about certain things. So immerse yourself into that kind of experience, and see if that makes sense to you or not. So I think that would be other tips. If you can do that, I think that would be good. And later on, you can actually mention that in your application, right? Like, hey, I actually did that, being like an auditor for the class. And I think that would kind of show like a clear interest to the school. So I knew that, from afar, coming to the school, doing the interview, and also coming to some of the classes would actually help with the candidacy. So if there's anything you can do, I think that would definitely help to differentiate and really bolster on the interest of the school, right? So yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you about was the interview, because there aren't many details on the website. Interviews are conducted by alumni or senior admission staff of the MBA program, and your interview will take place in the region in which you are based. So I'm wondering if you can just share your experience and help our audience a little bit in terms of how they can prepare, if they can prepare.
Sure. Certainly you can. But I think that would, before I answer the question, Darren, so the self-positioning would definitely help with this one, right? So that's why I always, and I think you know this as well, answer the bunch of questions about yourself. That's all for me is self-positioning. Once you have that clear, everything else will fall into place. I cannot stress this point any better.
And by self-positioning, you mean why an MBA, why this business school, what you plan to do, basically, like 3 questions, right? Essentially.
Yeah. Okay. And also how you differentiate yourself. How do you know you'll be of value?
Love that.
I think the value question is quite important. And how do you kind of communicate your value in a way that the alumni or the senior admission officer would understand and would accept that and be prepared to back up your answers, right? Because they're like, oh, how do you know you'll be of value? Yeah, all right.
Exactly.
So back to your question about the interview. So my interview was conducted with an alumni. So with financial services experience, they mapped it. So the thing about LBS is that they always try to match you with somebody that of the career interest, and also with somebody that would close to your geography. So in my case, it was a director of a Singaporean PE fund who used to be a consultant, right? So I think that was a very, very good interview, and I got a lot of the feel of how driven the interviewer was with his journey, before the MBA, during the MBA, and after the MBA. So I see myself maybe in like 10 years after school, for example, right? So I think that's what I gained from it. I think the school would want us to see that as well, right? So it's not just that I wanted to get in, but they also want me to see whether I fit in during that interview. And that's actually a very important point, because if you fit in, you're likely to have a good time and good experience there. But if not, there's something else you probably want to think about, right? So I think that my interview was nearly an hour or a bit longer, but it started off as, the bit of introduction, a bit of chat, and then we actually go through the formal interview. all of the questions you expected to get from yourself, your interests, your time, situational questions, your values, probably. And then they'll drill down to some areas that they think might be of interest, and they will ask about your application. So everything you write on there will be shared with the alumni, and they will ask questions about something that they want you to clarify, something that they think that would be a good thing to discuss, and something that the interviewer might like to talk about. So I think is like very broad context of what they can be asked about. Yeah, but it's all about all the classic prep. If you've done it, the prep well from the beginning, I think the interview will be mostly about the way you conduct yourself. I think that by that time, right? So I think by that time, it could use quite a bit of practice, either with the other alumni, other people you think that can help you to improve your skills. So yeah, so there's content and there's a presentation. Right? If you work on the content like way earlier, I think you only have to work on the presentation part, which is it takes some time, but you get there. But if you have to work on both of them at the same time, given the limited amount of time that you have, and then you probably have to struggle a little bit. This is why if you can divide it, I think that would be easier just to process. So back to my interview. I had that, so I think all of the introduction, career interest, plan MBA, and then situational questions. And then at the end, there will be a question where there's a small business case was given to me. And I was given some time to prepare, and then the interviewer will pause it and then come back and ask, like, okay, so after, what's your thoughts? Then you have to present in your way of for that business case question, how to respond to it, why you think that, and then you'll be given some certain time to present, and there's some questions asked after that as well. So it's pretty much like a standard open case interview. There's no right or wrong question, but I think the interviewer might look for the structure, how confident you are, how clearly you conduct yourself and your business ideas, and what evidence you have to back your reasoning with, and also what would be the conclusion you want to give them, and what other things you might want to consider. I think that would probably be something that I think that could be prepared, but there's no way you can prepare about the content because that changes from time to time. But I think the structure of it, I think that would be, but you also want to make it sound like you don't rehearse a lot for that kind of structure, right? There's got to be a room for interpretation. There's got to be a room for flexibility there. But I think, yeah, to answer your question about the interview, I think that is like the way that it worked from the beginning to the end, the structure of the whole interview. And to be frank, I quite like that experience because it gave me a very fast ride, but there's a lot of good interaction between me and the alumnus about how we interact, the way we think, the way they challenge me. And, it was fun and thrilling at the same time. But yeah, I think something that definitely would need quite a bit of prep.
Yeah.
No, it's doable. It's doable. Totally doable.
Yes. No, I think that, thank you for sharing that. It's super helpful. Yeah, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your actual London Business School experience. Sure. I mean, the first question is, what really surprised you about LBS that you didn't quite expect as an applicant, even after all your research, all your talking with alumni? Yeah, I'm wondering if anything really surprised you about the experience.
So I did what I could to prepare from afar, right? You could say that's research. You could say that's expert interview. But I think, that would give me like some flavor of what the experience would be like. But going through it and have everything else going on the background. So I think that is something that you have to experience for yourself. I would say that to any candidate. I could only give you the flavor of it, but whether it actually tastes like to you, right? That's up to you, right? It depends on how you manage, depends on what you want to do, and that's so vast. So I say it to the candidates who come and approach me after my MBA might not be your MBA, although we maybe studying in the same school, doing the exact same course, but it could vary a little bit. So the experience that surprised me the most is probably how well connected LBS is.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so because it has a very strong brand in London, so I think most of the employers know what LBS is, and when I think the brand name carries quite a bit of weight here in London and in Europe, so I think that helps us quite a bit with the recruitment and at least open a conversation. I think that translates, or that goes into accessibility for us, right? So which is good, and also they have quite many employers coming into the office, into the school, trying to do a presentation by themselves, trying to get some students joining them as employees. So I think that's a good source of employment. So I think that's good. And also the student body is something that's quite special about LBS is that, I would say, I haven't checked the stat, but I would say close to 80-90% of our students are actually from international.
Yeah, it's 90% plus. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You know it better than I do.
Well,
but I can tell.
Just from the website.
Yeah. But I can tell from, who my classmates are, right? I mean, those are very, very international. And that's from Latin America, from Europe, from Asia, You will be very likely, this is my experience, very likely in a study group. So every subject we do one study group, right? In very, very likely, you'll be in one study group with 5 different nationalities. And that is something that you always, okay, so what about that? Things in that country. And yeah. So that's not uncommon at all at LBS, because sometimes you find so you could work with somebody from Brazil, Vietnam, Singapore, and somebody from South Korea, and that's like completely normal. And we almost expected that. So that's when I exchange to Chicago booth, I find it quite unlikely to be the case. Great school, great experience that I had. But yeah, I think that the student body is something that LBS really stands out if you want into that. And that well-connectedness, right, also shows where, not just in employment, but also when we want to do exchange programs. So it covers all sorts of schools from the US, not just in North America, but any others as well, Europe, obviously, and then Asia, right? And even in further than Hong Kong as well. I think in Beijing, for example, there's always partner schools that will accept students. So I think, if you want to do a semester, even from a semester, even for a week, 2 weeks, there's always an exchange program that you can go to experience whether you actually want to work there or you want to have a different reason to be there. I think that perfectly is possible.
Yeah. And did you always plan to do your exchange at Chicago booth? Was that part of your plan the whole time, and how does that process work in terms of selecting schools to apply for? Is it limited in terms of seats, and how does that work?
Yes, it's limited. So I think after close to the end of the first year, something in the second semester of the first year, we are given an application and to indicate our interests of what schools we wanted to go to for an exchange, and when we wanted to do it. So very, very specific, school and when. So I knew I wanted to do in the US because I never been there. I got so many friends, saying, "Oh yeah, you should do it," for the experience, and it's all the reasons too, right? So I applied to a few. So Chicago was my first choice, and other schools as well. And then we have to write an application for it, and it's also ranked. They also grade the application essay for that particular exchange application. And they also use the grades that we have here at LBS as one of the criteria for it. So, and then there will be like an exchange committee, for example, will set and rank us, who we want to go. And then by that ranking, who will go first, will go first. And if the people on the top drop out, the people on the next on the list will move up. That kind of selection process, quite well organized in a way. Yeah. And then after that, if we're given the slot, right, confirm, and then it'll take us a really long time to do all the visa and everything. So I think that I went to Chicago in January and I got my visa in November. That means the first semester of the second year. So you see the very long timeline, wait time there.
Yes, exactly.
And that's been taken into account, like when you want to be. And I think LBS offer us the flexibility to work around this. Some of the semesters in the US schools are like 4 months, some of them are 5 months, so actually quite longer. But LBS does give us a kind of flexibility if you want to do like one long over there, the classes here might be a bit condensed. You have to spread it out onto other terms, and they do give us that option.
Yes, I see. And on that note, I'm wondering how many of your classmates left after 15 months versus 18 months versus 21 months, and how you kind of saw people taking advantage of that, if at all, because that is a big thing that they market in terms of the flexibility of the program.
So I think the flexibility is real, and I do see quite a bit of classmates I just didn't see them anymore around campus, and they move on to different things, as I've found out on LinkedIn. I think if you have that kind of focus coming in and you want to do the minimum, and I think that's perfectly fine if your career interest is more important. 15, I don't have the exact stat with me, but I do know that there's quite a lot of people doing that, and they'll come back for graduation the year after, right? And yeah, it's totally possible. And I see all the reasons why. And the school give us like a set of minimum that we have to do to get qualified. And there's a maximum as well. We can't do too many. Yeah. But the good thing is that if you feel like you have missed out because you've finished too early, I'm pretty sure there's some people down the road like, hey, I should have get to know my classmate a little more. So there's always a chance to do that in London. But also I think the school offers alumni from time to time to audit, or like a few classes from time to time, so to get in touch, to get them involved. And I think if you want to explore some certain fields that of interest, you can still do that. So after graduation, it does just end there, right? It continues.
Yes. How do internships, like maybe you can talk about your internship, how does this fit into the schedule? And
so my internship is actually the easy one because it fit right in the summer. So my first year ends in June, and my internship also starts in June and ends in August, and my new semester is in September. So I think that's very natural fit. That's called structure internship, right? So that's like in the time where I didn't study. During term time, you can actually do internship as well. If you don't study, I think you can work up to full time given the law and regulation here in the UK. But if you start studying, I think you're capped at 20 hours. I think that's totally allowed. And I've seen people doing 4 or 5 internships in 2 years. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Rarely see them in school. But yeah, I think they can do it because London is like, you have so many choices. I don't want to like upsell the story, but I do think that I've seen people like that. Not everybody will have that experience and can get that many. But totally, if you want to do and even look, I think there's a chance that you can get that as well. And you don't have to do any internship at all. If you absolutely think that internship might not be the best use of your time, there's always summer school in entrepreneurship you can attend, and that counts as 1 hour credit. And there's so many others. So I think that's totally up to the student to organize their time schedule, not the school that will force them to. Yeah.
I mean, what were your favorite, just on the academic side really quick, like what were your sort of favorite parts of the curriculum?
So I think my favorite part, so I came in, although I said I want to do consulting, I still want to experiment in the 2 years, right? Like, entrepreneurship, strategy, little bit of tech. So I do think that, thinking back, I think the classes I love the most actually are from the entrepreneurship classes. And I think this is one of the pillars that the schools is stressing, that you want more entrepreneurs or entrepreneur aspirants, even if you didn't end up doing entrepreneurship, right? The study and the feel, the touch, and all the knowledge is still quite relevant regardless of what you do. So I think those are quite the good classes that we get to speak to. So one of the famous, not famous, but one of the most memorable classes I attended was in, the journey to different people to do their entrepreneurship. And there was the professor, talking to us and challenge us the way we think that the entrepreneur should do in that particular. I remember it was Cotswold Gin. It's quite a new gin brand developed in the UK. And it's, it caught up with the Gen Z preference and the change in customer experience, the change in the taste and everything. And yeah, we talk a lot about, I think that's a good way the entrepreneur should do about it. The CEO should have done this, totally should. Shouldn't go into that, shouldn't give in to the pressure of the PE fund. Don't do it. So I think that was a very fascinating discussion. And at the end, he invited the very CEO at the back of the class. Do you want to say anything? That was fun. That was fun. And that he's actually like a friend of the professors, right? And also we didn't get to see that kind of caliber of entrepreneur and tell us, in the flesh, say, that was a very difficult time, or that was such a great experience, right? So learning from people like that, having seen their financial, also business development, and also their, emotional change during the process, I think that gave us a very good understanding. It's not just a study on case study and then talk about it, but it's something that give us a flavor, something for us to remember by. Imagine that you talk he should have done that. That's a bad idea.
Right.
At the back, and he's like, this. He said it wasn't such a bad idea after all, because that was quite a bit of context was given from the entrepreneur himself. So I think that was a good class that I would remember.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I mean, in terms of the time management, you said that it's a big challenge during the MBA, and especially as I guess there's 90% international students, so everyone's international pretty much. But how would you suggest to applicants? How did you make the most of your time? Right, this is a precious 21 months.
Okay, I try to also answer from experience, right? I think if you try everything, you'll burn out. That's for sure. Especially in person, that burns you out faster because of the energy you need to transport. Thinking back, Zoom in the first few semesters wasn't such a bad idea for us after all, because we can switch almost from one call to another without much of the transition. But yes, I think having the focus in doing what you want to do. If you want to do something, do more of it, basically. If you don't want to do something, keep it as a priority 2, 3, 4, 5, do less of it. If you didn't get to talk to somebody who did, and then you get the flavor, right? So the investment for the time is a lot less. 5-10 minute conversation, you'll learn what they learn in an hour. So I would say definitely learn how to leverage that. That's give you the feel, and it's good. You miss out. You can there's a way for you to kind of chase and get that content if you deem it's that good. Do you want to change? But the focus, your focus is something that you will spend the most time on, I would feel like. But also, I know it's quite a fast changing environment where there's a lot of things going on. If you do a lot of subjects, right, and a lot of study group, there's so much things you cannot keep track of, and that's fine. Right? You don't have to do everything. You don't have to tick all the boxes, but figure out a way of things that you need most and spend more time on those. I think that's the priority, and everything else is secondary.
So you're kind of,
I feel like,
sorry to interrupt, but you're saying kind of go deep rather than go wide. And then is that kind of what you're saying? I'm curious how you, yourself, right? How did you stay focused?
I wouldn't put it that way, Darren. Go deep and go wide. That's a very, how to say this? It's not a simple way to put it, because sometimes you do need to do both. You do need to go wide, you need to go deep as well, but when to do what, I think that's more important. And that's only answered by if you know what you want, in terms of your career interest, what the things you want, just to understand the flavor or the things that you totally have no clue about. You want to challenge yourself and how you rank your internal priorities. And that will lead to how you structure your time a bit more. But there's also some room, right, for you to experiment. And how much time do you want to allocate for that experimental purposes? Say I want to send out my CV to some employers in London, see what comes out there, right? Or you want to, and then reiterate on the process, what I miss out, whether I fit in this one or not. There's some room to do that as well. But as long as you know what's important and what's not, I think that helps a little bit easier. But you cannot do everything at the same time, 100% of your capacity. That's impossible. Yeah. And there's a like way for you to shorten your prep. If you can, use your alumni, use people who worked there before, use the previous classes, admission officers, not admission officer, but I think the career officers. LBS has pretty decent career office that they're quite fast to respond and help us to learn for quite a bit of our skills identify our skill gap and how to bridge them fast. I think that's quite good.
And yeah, I mean, I'm just curious what your biggest takeaways were from your LBS experience.
I think that for me, right, the biggest takeaway probably is it's the MBA will answer some of your questions and will also make you think about other questions too, in a way that I think that it did give me a more comprehensive view of work and life, and also what's important, what's not. But even I did the self-positioning right after the MBA. You kind of know with more confidence about what the things that you want to explore and the things that you probably want to leave behind. And I think that's completely fine. And I think this is a journey not just for the MBA, but maybe for the rest of my life, I would probably do this exercise anyway from time to time. And I think that's completely fine. Now that I know that I can do it, the next time, which should be easier, I hope. But also, I think the MBA also gives me a very global perspective because I learned from a lot from my classmates. Things could be very different elsewhere in the world. The way they think, the way they operate, the way things could change, that would affect their personal and their career choices. I think it's quite good to know as well. And sometimes, at work, in any other business situation, if you have similar situation or people like that, it helps you to adapt a bit faster. And yeah, and I think the last takeaway that I would give is the network it really depends on how you define it and how you structure it. But there's always somebody that can answer your question from time to time. And as long as you are connected, as long as you're driven enough, you'll find those people with the good answers. And I think that's definitely important.
I mean,
yeah. Go on.
Let me ask you one more question about that network in terms of how you structure and define it. How did you, do that or find people that could answer your questions? I mean, is it, yeah, I'll leave it there.
Very open-ended question there, Darren. But yeah, I try to show the way that I thought about it. So basically, there are people who you got to know them, right? Even my classmates, people that you probably don't know. There's so many out there. The access to those people could be from the school, could be from LinkedIn, could be many ways you can reach them. But I think it's quite important the way how you approach them and actually what are you looking for. You have to be very clear on that. And usually they would respond, knowing, the alumni of the same school, they always do. If they can give the time, it's great. If they can't give the time or they don't know enough of the matter, they refer you to somebody else. I think that's a good way. So even if I get like a rejection of time or even like, I'm maybe not the best person to talk to, like, okay, who else can I talk to? I always ask for a referral. It's a lower commitment to them, but you might get, refer to somebody that actually can give you the answer or to give you at least some ideas of what to look for and what to prepare. Yeah, and stay connected, of course.
But let's talk about your job and how you landed that first job. So In terms of applying for the internship, was that difficult for you? Can you tell us how that process worked for you?
So for consulting, it's called structured recruitment, meaning that it has a fixed date in terms of timeline, in terms of what's to be done. That is communicated out pretty early on, right? So we have that kind of time frame way in advance and to prepare for that. And it's kind of like a wheel. Once it's set in motion, it kind of roll on, deadlines, certain dates, certain things, you have to do it. So I think that is about consulting recruitment. So during that, you still depending on the data that is given to you, there's a bit of work that is expected from the candidate that you actually go and reach out to people, alumni, or even people that work in the office. There'll be plenty of time for you to do that gathering as well with people in the actual offices of those companies that we're applying to. So use that chance well. So do all of that, and then the application process, right? Have to write, motivation letters, CV, resume, cover letter, I suppose to call it, all the basic stuff, but you have to do it really well. And then after that, there will be rounds of interview, 2 rounds for each company. And the first round probably is a case, second round probably a case and some, the partner interview or the MD interview. And then after that will be offer coming out. And it's usually for a consulting company, the answer is quite fast. That within a week or 2, I think you know. And that's like probably the first rounds of application together with investment banking, right? Those are structural recruitment and that happen fast and early on. So later candidates who want to do consulting, right, they can get that out of the way and then they can do something else like internship or continue with the application to other sectors or set of employers that they want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just curious how you kind of plan that process. Did you apply to 5 firms, 2 firms again, 3 firms? Like, did you cast your net pretty wide? And I'm also curious to hear how your classmates approached it as well for the internship.
So I think the most common approach is to apply for everything. But I think for some people, everything under the sun, so they call it. Apply when you have nothing yet. You don't have any leads that you want to create the most amount of leads that you may have. So I think that's fair. If they can have the time and the mental clarity to do that, yes, why not? So most of us will do that, but some people, they know they want to focus on some specific geography, for example, right? I think that's fair. That helps them to narrow down. For me, I only applied to the London offices. I didn't even put like the Southeast Asian offices down in the application. So I think that's to answer your question. Yes, that people catch the wide net, but also if they can focus early, do that as well. But most of the time people will get, because there's limited amount of interviews that they will send out. Not everyone's guaranteed to have an interview, right? And without interviews, you cannot progress further. So when you're given the opportunity, I think they will take it. So it looks like a funnel. When you fly to, let's say 5 to 7, you get interview for like 3, 4. And you get this last round for like 1, 2, and then you get offer for 1. That kind of funnel down into some sort of, so I've seen people who've done really well and they got more offers from what the offices that they're applying to. But I think that most of their first choice of office that they get offered for. But I think that's like a lot of dedication and the profile, got to be very good and very desirable for the companies to actually, oh yes, we want that person, right?
Yeah. Are there any nuances that say listeners from Southeast Asia or, outside Europe should know about, applying to these firms to work in the UK? Like you said, no, I'm not interested in working in Southeast Asian offices, right? But I could see them why they would want you to.
Yeah. So I think to be fair, right? Applying to these offices would give them a great advantage because there's a shortage of supply of MBA over there. So I think definitely would not discount that. For me, I did discount it for personal reason, but definitely I see a lot of my classmates receiving offers from Southeast Asian offices. So I think that's perfectly fine because that's what they wanted to do, right? They wanted to go back home, reunite with their family, building roots and stay close to their loved ones. And I totally, totally understand that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and the visa process, like
Mm.
you all get 2 years to look for a job, right? Or am I missing
That's a
detail there?
that's a graduate visa. Yes.
Yes.
I think most of the master programs in the UK, I think that was like a year, 2 years ago now, that when you graduate, you're given 2 year graduate visa, and you can use that to work for most of the employers. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you, so after you landed your internship with Accenture and you worked through that internship, did you get the offer at the end of that?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah. And is that common, would you say, for most of the internships?
Yeah, I would say that's common.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So then it sounds like to me, and that's probably the most important part of securing that first desired post-MBA job, right? Is landing an internship with the company.
Yeah. So I think that's important, definitely. But I think, I mean, I've seen people without internship can still land full-time offers in consulting. So I think it definitely helps. It helps you to kind of, having the comfort of knowing you have that, fixated down. But I've seen people that without consulting internship that they can apply and they still get the full-time role. So I wouldn't think that's like the absolute must do, but it definitely helps.
Okay. Any last thing in terms of, I know you're familiar with the UK, but being from Vietnam and getting that job, that first job in the UK, like culturally, or things you found sort of interesting, difficult, fun, I mean, to me, it sounds like a lot of work, but it's a structured process. And if you put in the time and you prepare well, sounds like a lot of your classmates succeeded, even if they didn't get all their offers. But yeah, I'm just wondering if, anyone's thinking of going to LBS or Oxford or Cambridge, one of these top schools, and, things they should know about landing a job in the UK.
Yeah, I can't say, for all of us, but I think, there will be some differences in terms of cultural, as you mentioned, in terms of how structured things could be over here, definitely more structured than Southeast Asia. So that it took a while to navigate the whole thing. And the best source to learn is, learn from people that did the navigation themselves, and leverage the time and advise a little bit more. But I also think that there's also some room for, you have to go through it, and you have to be flexible, and you have to go through the experience with an open mind, and also embrace what is important, and also conduct yourself or think in a way that wouldn't hold too much of the old ways of thinking or way of working where you're from. I think that's cool to have, but it's not applicable. Sometimes it may not be applicable. So always, if you're unsure, there's always people you can ask at work, or also people who your peers at the school, or even people who've been through it. There's always some people you can speak to, like, how would I approach that? Well, I'll think of this, but do you think it's a good idea? There's always people who would give you that kind of advice. And I think that's quite important, right? Eventually you get shaped into thinking, you get shaped into fitting in, you get shaped into learning the way that, the people think, the business operates, for example. I think that's important.
Yes. Last question, Chris. I know I've kept you longer than we planned, but it seems like a key theme of our conversation is having conversations with people that have been through the process as an applicant, as a student applying for a job. And it seems like you've done a good job of having these conversations or meeting these people. And I'm wondering if you could give any last tips on how to do that without being, how should I say, annoying? Right? Or if not annoying, like do it in a way that the person you're reaching out to wants to share with you.
Yeah. So is first of all, right, Darren, don't think that if I may, everybody's busy day after work and everything else, right? And if you can't get some time with them, you can't get some time with them. I think that's fair. That if you set that is the expectation coming in, right? Anything you land, anytime you get to some people is an achievement, right? So default, I do my shoot, right? if it sticks, and if you can get to some time, then treasure it even well. I think that's fair. I don't think people reaching out to other people, especially for people who've been through the process that they are going through, I don't think it's being annoying at all. Most people would think it's quite flattery for somebody that would come to them for advice, but also you got to frame the ask quite nicely and with a focus and give them like the least amount of commitment as possible. Right? Just like, oh yeah, I want to, there's also an exercise we do this in school, right? Frame the ask quite short, quite frank, and also, give them like, if you can just have maybe a few minutes to chat about these certain things. I think most of the time, and you also give like the time, right? And if they can't commit that, oh yes, it's a different time. So there's always about how you approach, and you do a lot, and that's also something to prepare you for later in your career as well. Because I think there's a lot of things when the time you reach out, people were like, nah. But there's a way you kind of frame it in a way that they're like, okay, I give this person a bit of time, and sometimes that's all it takes for you to get a new relationship, right? Another way, apart from cold messaging and cold calling, is getting by referral. Referral would help a lot, right? After you speaking to some person, like, who else can I talk to? There's always like, oh yes, this person you can definitely talk to, and then that's take that and see where it takes you.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for sharing your whole journey with us. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure our listeners will really benefit. Just want to thank you for coming on the show and wish you the best with your new life in London and with Accenture.
Thank you so much, Darren. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Touch MBA podcast. Remember, you can get free school selection help and a profile review at touchmba.com. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter